everyone, happy Friday and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how I fixed a painting so that it went from this to this. To start off, the first painting was done with alcohol markers on watercolor paper. I'm still new to drawing with markers, so I messed up big time and I didn't like how it looked, and I thought that I would try and fix it with gouache. First, I start by mixing the skin tone. I wanted her skin to be like a pinkish tone, so I added a little bit more red than I would normally do. I kept the consistency fairly opaque, not that much water, so that it can cover the alcohol marker paint. I wasn't sure if it was going to fully cover the base, but I think it turned out really well. I kept her forehead and the area under her eyes white because that's where the light hit the strongest in my reference photo. Once I was happy with the first layer of skin, I mixed the colors for the shadows. As you can see, I'm adding a bit of violet to the existing mix to deepen it. I realized the round brush was a bit too big, so I switched to a smaller brush. It's one of my go-to brushes. This is an Escoda Primera brush in size 1. Next, I added a bit of ultramarine deep to go over the shadow areas of her nose. And while that is drying, I start working on her lips. I'm using a mix of flame red and white to get this soft pink undertone, which I then slowly deepen. For the light areas, I'm actually using a bit of permanent white to bring out the light areas a bit more. And then for the nostril, I'm using a mix of burnt sienna and flame red. I recommend starting with a light coat first, and then once it's dry you can outline it to give it a bit more definition. This is probably a habit from my watercolor practices, but I like to line the eyelids with a shade that is a few shades darker than the base skin tone first before I add the eyelashes. I feel like it adds a bit more dimension and makes the eye look a bit more natural. For eyebrows, I usually paint it 2 shades lighter than my lashes. And here's a fun fact, I'm actually using the same shade of brown for my lips as my eyebrows. I don't know if you could tell it, but yeah. I feel like her face is coming together nicely, so I'm moving on to her fingers. First I outlined them and then I added a bit of shadows. Then I feel like I could go even darker for her face shadows, so I added a bit more violet to the skin layer paint mix and then did another layer of shadows. Then lastly, I'm going to work on the hair. I always do that last for some reason. This is a mix of burnt sienna and a bit of ivory black for the first coat. As you can see, I wasn't fully able to cover the alcohol marker paint for the hair on her shoulders. It ran a little bit when I went over it with a wet brush, so I had to be a little bit more careful. And then next I added a layer of ivory black because it's meant to look like really wet black hair. And then I switched to a smaller brush to get the finer details. And lastly, I added a bit of shadow, and that was it. So this is how it looks. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.